Now in this video we'll talk about PIM Bootstrap Router, which is an alternative to Auto RP for advertising the RP information to the rest of the domain. Now PIM Bootstrap Router is a standard based protocol which is a part of the PIM version 2 standard, and one of the major advantage with the PIM Bootstrap Router is it's a standard based solution to advertise the RP information within the PIM domain, and also it supports IPv6 multicast. Now the functionality is going to be the same as Auto RP, and here also it is going to define two different rules where we need to configure any specific router as an RP. We call it as an RP candidate. And the Bootstrap router, the same concept as mapping agent. Now here the RP candidate is going to same as candidate RP in the Auto RP, but the major difference between the Auto RP and the Bootstrap router is Auto RP is going to use some multicast addresses like 239.0.1.39 and 40 to listen to the RP announce and mapping agent discovery messages. So RP announce and RP discovery messages. Now instead the information here it is sent, it is flooded in the form of PIM messages hop by hop. Now here whatever the RP candidate, let's say in my scenario I'm going to make these two routers an RP or any one router as an RP. Now this RP is going to use a unicast to advertise itself to the Bootstrap router, and there is no more multicast addresses required. But in case of Auto RP, they need to register to those multicast addresses in order to get the RP information. But here the candidate RP uses unicast to advertise itself as a candidate RP, and then the BSR candidate is going to propagate this information to the rest of the domain hop by hop in the actual PIM messages. So it's not going to use any, it just includes the information about the RP in the PIM messages hop by hop. Now it's going to be a little bit easier, simplified way to advertise the RP information, and also it is a standard based. Now configuration wise also it's going to be very easy. Whatever the router we decided as an RP, we need to go to that router and we need to tell IP PIM RP candidate and loopback 0 interface. And then you can make the same router as a mapping agent or BSR router, we call it as Bootstrap router, or you can make any other router as a Bootstrap router here. So in my scenario, I'm going to make the router 3, which is the RP as well as the Bootstrap router. Now once we configure this, all the routers are going to learn about the RP information, and that is something advertised by the Bootstrap router in the actual PIM messages. So let's get into the command line to verify this configuration. Now the first thing, I got an IGP configured in my OSP of domain using on all the 5 routers using OSP of area 0. So that's the first step. And also all the routers are pre-configured with IP PIM sparse mode. Now these are the two prerequisite pre-configured things I have in this initial configurations here. So if you want to verify, we can specifically go to specific routers like let's go to router 4 to verify the information here. So the first thing on the router 4, I have OSP of neighborship, and also if you verify show IP PIM neighbors, on the router 4 I got 3 PIM neighbors. And similar way I can go and check on the router 2 OSP of neighbor and then show IP PIM neighbors. And if you verify the routing table, I can see all the routes advertised as per the topology. All the connected interfaces are advertised here. Now the next thing is, what we are going to do is, the next thing we are supposed to configure an RP here. Now this time I'm going to make router 3 loopback 0 as an RP, and also I'm going to make the router 3 as a BSR candidate also. So Bootstrap router. So I'm going to make the router 3 as a Bootstrap router. So let's configure this. Before I configure, I'm going to enable the debug command, debug IP PIM on one of the router just to verify the messages here. I'll go to router 3. I'm going to say IP PIM RP candidate loopback 0. Now before we enable this command, we are using loopback 0. Ensure that particular loopback 0 is already enabled with IP PIM sparse mode. Now here I did that already. If you just check the interface, it is already pre-configured, and also the loopback 0 is already advertised in my OSPF domain. So if you just verify this, show IP OSPF interface brief, the loopback 0 is also advertised here. Now that's something already pre-configured here. So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the router 3 loopback 0 as an RP. We got some additional parameters we can change. Later on we'll get into these options. Right now we'll go with simple configuration. And then we are going to say IP PIM BSR candidate also loopback 0. So if you verify show IP PIM RP mappings, now this system is a candidate RP as well as it's a bootstrap router. I can see it receives a bootstrap version 2 message from 13.001. Now I'm expecting some more messages here. You can see on the client side, on the router 1 I have enabled this. So let me clear the PIM, maybe if I have some RP information. Now if you observe here, bootstrap forwarded on router 1. Now if you just verify here on the router 4, if I give show IP PIM RP mappings, you can see by default we did not define any group, so it's going to be for all the class D addresses. Now the RP is 13.001, the router 3 loopback interface, and it's learned via bootstrap. And if I go and check on the router 1, you can see I have a debug message here, received a bootstrap on this interfaces. And you can see the RP information has been learned for this group address via PIM version 2. And if I give show IP PIM RP mapping, now I can see that RP information, the RP is 13.001 for the complete class D addresses, and it's learned via bootstrap program. Now to test the reachability, I have configured on the router 5. If you just get into the interface F0 by 0, I have pre-configured some group IGMP join group messages on the router 5. Let's go to router 1 and try to ping to those group messages 224.2.2.2. I should be able to reach that particular group addresses. So that's going to confirm that. Let me disable the debug here. And then I should be able to reach that particular group addresses. And if I try to ping to 224.3.3.3, that is on the router 5, I got some join messages. I'm able to reach. I can see here there is no more multicast addresses used. In case of auto RP, the RP candidate as well as your mapping agent has to learn the information via multicast addresses. But whereas in case of bootstrap router, it's going to use some unicast PIM messages to advertise itself as an RP to the BSR. So it's going to be unicast. And then the BSR is going to include the RP information in the PIM messages. Now it's going to provide the unpim information to the rest of the domain, which allows all the remaining routers to learn about the RP information so that they can send some join messages and the register messages.